Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, today we are jumping right into a really intense world. Think high stakes, fey politics, elven intrigue, Alver chaos.
Absolutely. We're talking about a place where alliances are everything, love is, well, basically a political tool, fear is actual magic, and you've got this queen who's also a ruthless former crook.
Exactly. We're going deep on the events around this forced vow, this political marriage between two incredibly powerful figures, Prince Jonas Eriksson, the Alver, known as the Nightmare Prince.
And Princess Skadinia of the Doklafar, the Shadow Elves, she's called the Mist Thief, for a very good reason.
Right. And the sources we're using today, they're fascinating because they don't read like fiction. They feel like almost like a historical record of some massive geopolitical shift.
Yeah, it's really detailed stuff. We've got these extensive excerpts covering the tough negotiations, the culture clashes, which are huge here, and this really surprising personal story playing out.
All set against the backdrop at the Everseas, where you've got Fae, elves, Alver clans constantly bumping heads, sometimes violently.
So our mission today, what we're trying to do here is basically give you the learner's shortcut. We want to decode the lore, get into the nitty-gritty of why this alliance happened, the motivations, which are pretty brutal sometimes.
And strategic. Brutal and strategic. We also need to unpack the cultural differences, these specific, sometimes really contradictory beliefs that ultimately shapes their whole story, their fate, really.
It's about understanding how these two, who were, let's be honest, enemies at first, somehow became the cornerstone of this completely new, powerful, and frankly, pretty weird kingdom.
Yeah, unconventional is putting it mildly. It's an amazing look at how something purely political, like a calculated necessity, can spiral into this incredibly fierce personal bond.
It really can. Okay, so where do we start? Hashtag tag tag one, world building and the political precedent.
Right, to really get the weight of this vow, we need to lay the land first, the political setup. Who are the main players here?
Okay, so broadly, you've got the Fey realms and the Elven clans, and then you have the Alver, Jonas's people, who are this sort of wild card, but they're tied to the Fey.
Let's break down the Fae first.
Sure, so the Fey realms, you've got four traditional Earth Fey kingdoms, think, forests, mountains, that kind of thing. And then there's the Ever Kingdom, that's the Sea Fey, ruled by King Eric Bloodsinger and Queen Livia Ferris. Big power players.
And the key thing here, they weren't always allies, right? Earth and Sea Fae.
Not at all. Historically rivals, but they united. Why? Because of the rising threat from the elves. Survival, basically.
Okay, elves. This is where it gets complicated because they're not monolithic.
No, definitely not. Big split. You have the Doklafar, the Shadow Elves, that's Skandinia's people. They were led by King Eldorard, her grandfather, and her. Their home is this place called Nathaven.
And then the antagonists.
Right. The Losofar, the Light Elves. Their leader is Prince Arion. He's ambitious, he's the main troublemaker trying to break the Fey alliance and pull the Doklafar, specifically Skadinia, over to his side.
He's the constant thorn in everyone's side.
Pretty much. And then finally, we get to Jonas's people, the Alver folk or the Clock Glass. They're this distinct magical clan, usually linked with the Earth Fey.
What makes them stand out?
Well, a couple things. One, their magic. They call it mesmer. It's incredibly diverse, really powerful, sometimes terrifying stuff. And two, their loyalties and their whole social structure are unconventional.
Yeah, the royalty says it all. King Case and Queen Malin, Jonas's parents.
Exactly. Famous story. They weren't born royal. They were cut purses, crooks. Ran a powerful guild, basically fought their way to the top and became king and queen. That tells you a lot about Clockglass.
It really does. And Jonas himself calls his home the Feral Kingdom. That background, that total lack of stuffy court rules, it's crucial for understanding why Skadinia, who comes from the complete opposite environment, eventually fits in there.
Absolutely critical. It's chalk and cheese compared to Nathaven. And this whole power structure, Fey, Elven, Alver, it all pivots on these magical affinities, the mesmer.
They're not just spells people learn, they're innate powers.
Yeah, exactly. Innate, often tied to their personality, defining who they are.
Okay, let's talk about Skadinia's then. The Mist Thief. Sounds ominous.
It is. Her power is genuinely terrifying. She can basically steal anything. Life force, someone else's magic, physical objects, even like whole chunks of land. She does it using these dark, swirling mists.
But there's a catch, right? The sources mention a cost.
A huge one. And this is key to her whole character arc. The power is tied to her emotional state. If she uses the mist cruelly, out of rage or malice, it literally chills her heart. Makes her numb, unable to feel.
So the more she uses it as a weapon, the less human she feels.
Precisely. It's devastating power, but it risks destroying her own capacity for emotion.
Hmm.
And Eldorard, her grandfather, knew this and, well, used it against her for years.
Okay, now contrast that with Jonas's family, the clock glass royalty. Their mesmers sound like a toolkit for espionage and warfare.
That's a pretty good description. They're varied and they work together in ways that are really effective if unsettling.
Let's run through the core family. King Case, Jonas's dad. What's his deal?
Case is a shadow walker, so infiltration, spying, moving unseen. But his really unique mesmer, the game changer, is that he can taste fear.
Taste fear. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means he instantly knows what someone's afraid of, what motivates their actions, whether they're genuinely panicked or just putting on a show. Think about having that ability in a tense negotiation or facing an enemy.
It's like a built-in lie detector and vulnerability scanner.
Wow. Okay, and Queen Malin, Jonas's mother? The memory thief.
Yeah, Melon's mesmer is maybe even more profound. She can take memories, obviously, but also borrow them or, crucially, share memories directly into someone else's mind.
So not just interrogation, but potentially empathy building or proving something undeniably.
Exactly. It's a powerful political and emotional tool. She can bypass arguments, skepticism, and just show someone the truth or share a feeling directly. We see her use that later to massive effect.
Okay, and Jonas's brother, Sander. Sander has this roar of wind in his chest. It's described as connecting him, giving him heightened senses, almost like a radar for magical or emotional disturbances around him. He's often the first to sense danger or shifts in the mood.
So the royal family alone is a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Then you had the inner court, the Krava. This list of abilities is wild. Prophetics, elixists, hypnotics, rifters. It sounds like a band of supervillains.
It kind of does, but they function as this cohesive, if chaotic, government. They're not nobles in silks, they're survivors, schemers. The prophetics, for instance, they have super senses, and some can literally taste lies in the air, like Case's fear sense, but for deception.
Your security detail and polygraph rolled into one.
Pretty much. The elicists are masters of poisons, antidotes, explosives, fire powders, your intelligence, counterintelligence, and special ops weapons guys.
Hypnotics, flashes of the future.
Yeah, not full prophecies usually, but glimpses, warnings, useful for strategy, avoiding traps.
And the rifters, they revel in pain and broken bodies. That sounds dark.
It is. They're the heavy hitters, the shock troops. They seem to draw strength from conflict, from injury, making them incredibly hard to stop in a fight. They're intimidating, used for breaking enemy lines or morale.
So the whole Clockglass Court isn't built on lineage or etiquette.
No, it's built on raw utility, maximizing these diverse, often brutal, magical talents. They're effective because nobody knows what to expect from them. They don't play by the standard rules.
Okay, that context is vital. So now the stakes of this specific alliance, why did it happen now?
Well, there was a major battle. The Fae and Elver forces attacked Nadhaven, Skadinia's home. The goal was to root out traitors working with Prince Arion and stop his advance.
So active warfare, not diplomacy.
Right. And during this battle, things got personal. Skadinia, using her mists defensively, nearly killed Jonas's brother, Sander.
Oof, that complicates things.
Hugely. And that near tragedy becomes the direct trigger for the vow. Jonas's motivation isn't romance, obviously. It's cold, hard strategy.
He needs to neutralize her power.
Exactly, specifically her land-stealing ability. He cannot let that fall into Prince Arion's hands.
Why is that the specific fear? Because of kinship bonds.
Yes, the sources are really clear on this Elven-Elver magic rule. Kinship matters. If Skadinia were to marry Arion, her mist thief power would become magically bound to his will, his desires as her king and husband.
So she'd become Arion's ultimate weapon against the Fae and Alvar.
Potentially world-ending. So the vow, the marriage to Jonas, it wasn't a choice. It was a geopolitical necessity. He had to marry her to contain her power and save his own people. Pure and simple. #2. The vows and the unconventional contract.
Okay, so the decision is made out of necessity. Then comes the negotiation. Where does this happen?
They hold the negotiations in the Sea Fae Palace, so neutral ground, hosted by Eric Bloodsinger and Livia Ferris, which is kind of ironic, right? This very formal, grand setting for the feral Alvar clan.
You can already feel the culture clash brewing. What's the main point of contention in the contract itself?
Yeah. The absolute core is binding Skadinia's affinity, her mist thief power, to Jonas, making it impossible for her to use it against the Fae realms. That's non-negotiable for Jonas and his family.
But her grandfather, King Eldorard, throws a wrench in the works.
He does. He insists on this very specific clause. He says the contract requires a touch of willingness from Skadinia. Without that, the magical binding of her power won't fully take hold.
Wait a minute. If Eldorard's whole game is controlling her, using her as a weapon, why would he insist on something that requires her willingness? Isn't that incredibly risky for him?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it really highlights either Eldorard's desperation or maybe a fundamental misunderstanding of the magic, or perhaps Skadinia herself.
What do the sources suggest?
They imply he knew her power was so immense, so tied to her actual soul, that just forcing her wouldn't work. A purely cold, transactional vow might fail to truly bind the affinity. He needed her to at least appear compliant, maybe hoping the act of vowing itself would be enough.
So he needed the illusion of willingness to make the magic stick.
Kind of, but by putting that clause in writing, by making actual willingness, however small, a requirement, he accidentally leaves the door cracked open for her. He gives her a potential out, a loophole based on her own feelings, which he'd spent years trying to suppress.
A fatal miscalculation on his part, it turns out. So this touch of willingness is hanging there. What else causes friction?
The dowry gets settled, paid in juval, this elven currency made from black gems. But the real fireworks happen when they discuss marital expectations, specifically mistresses.
Eldorard brings this up.
Yeah. Following traditional Dokkalfar courtly norms, or his interpretation of them, he basically suggests that, a king, like Jonas would become, is expected to have mistresses. He sees the marriage as purely political, transactional.
Male over delegation.
Explodes. Well, not literally, but politically. Jonas's father, King Case, just shuts it down. Hard. He flat out rejects the idea, not just politely, but with real force.
How does he phrase it?
He first locks eyes with Jonas, making it personal, and says, "You do now." Meaning, you, Jonas, now follow Alvar rules on this, not elven ones.
Laying down the law for his son in front of everyone.
Exactly. And then he makes this broader statement aimed at Eldorard and everyone else. We do not silence our queens.
Wow, that's unexpected. The Feral Kingdom has this fierce code about marital partnership and respect.
It seems so. Paradoxical, right. The former crooks value loyalty and respect within the marriage bond far more than the supposedly refined elven court. Case is basically telling Eldorard, and warning Jonas too, that this marriage won't be one where the wife is a silent pawn. She will have a voice, she will be respected.
It's a completely different framework for the marriage than Jonas or Skadinia anticipated.
Totally. And it completely torpedoes Jonas's original cynical plan.
Which was?
He basically intended to sign the contract, bind her power, and then go back to his life. New lovers, minimal contact with his wife, she'd be nearby, neutralized, fulfilling the terms, but emotionally ignored.
And Skadinia was probably expecting exactly that, right? Being treated like property.
Yes, she feared being just a political prisoner, having his affairs flaunted, reinforcing her status as just a tool.
But Case's declaration changes the game. And then Eldorard drops the real bombshell.
Right after Jonas signs, in blood. No less. The ink is barely dry when Eldorard casually mentions this other little clause.
The escape hatch.
The escape hatch. He reveals that Prince Arian is still actively trying to woo Skadi. And because of that touch of willingness clause Eldorard himself insisted on, Skadinia has a window the first turn, whatever period that is, to choose Arian instead.
And if she does?
The vow with Jonas dissolves, the contract is void, her power is unbound and potentially allied with Arian. Everything Jonas fought for is lost.
Devastating. So Jonas goes from thinking, okay, problem contained, to, oh God, I have to actually win this person over, and fast.
Instantly. His strategy has to pivot 180 degrees. He can't be indifferent. He now has to actively protect her, engage with her, convince her, or at least prevent her from choosing Arian. He's suddenly fighting for his wife's loyalty against a very real contender.
He's forced to see her as a person with agency, not just a magical asset to be locked down.
Exactly. Which leads directly to their first, rather dramatic encounter outside the formal setting.
The tavern scene. Skadinia tries to bolt.
Yeah, she's defiant, probably terrified, desperate. She tries to escape into anonymity, find some kind of distraction or debauchery, as the text says. She slips out, heads to a rough sea fae tavern.
And she's got this whole disguise going.
Oh yeah, it's quite theatrical. Heavy cloak, big straw hat pulled low. She's affecting this raspy, smoke-roughened voice, and she's even wearing a fake eye patch, trying to look like a seasoned, dangerous rogue.
She just wants to disappear for a bit. But Jonas,
showing that Alvar cunning he inherited, completely anticipates this. He doesn't just send guards after her. He stages an intervention. He has his close friends there, Lord Gavin Seeker, some of his personal fighters, even the guy serving the ale. They're all part of it. They let her walk in, maybe order a drink, then they all sort of reveal themselves, surrounding her, cornered.
Smooth. And the confrontation itself.
It's charged. Jonas steps up, physically challenges the disguise, tugs at the eye patch, and he immediately calls out the narrative she, and maybe he too, had been told about her.
What did she say?
He mentions the reports he got that she was supposedly empty, numb from her magic use, but he says he sees something else. He tells her, "I've already seen the fire in your eyes."
So he's rejecting the idea that she's broken or just a passive victim. He sees her spirit.
Right then and there. He cuts through the disguise, the political spin, the trauma narrative, and acknowledges her. He basically initiates their real relationship, this dynamic of testing and sparring, not with the contract, but with that acknowledgement.
And seals it how?
By claiming her publicly, but informally, "See you shortly, wife." It's a power play, sure, but it's also an acknowledgement that their fates are now truly personally intertwined. The game is on, hashtag tag 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 3, the dynamics of the feral kingdom.
Okay, so Skadinia arrives in Clockglass, Jonas's home turf. And it's like stepping onto another planet compared to Nat Haven. We really need to unpack this cultural collision.
It's fundamental to why the alliance ultimately works, against all odds. Jonas calls it the feral kingdom, and he's not really exaggerating. It's raw, it's loud, it's completely lacking in the kind of rigid formality she's used to.
It's the polar opposite of her upbringing. Nat Haven was all protocol control, especially control aimed at her.
Exactly. Clockglass's culture flows directly from its rulers, Case and Malin, the ex-crooks. Their court values practical skill, loyalty, and frankly, nerve over bloodlines or etiquette.
And the inner court, the Crivel, reflects that.
Absolutely. They're described as rough, noisy. They don't use formal titles most of the time, calling the king Case or Dodge the queen Mal. You even see guards joking around, physically shoving the king in jest.
Which would get you executed instantly in an elven court, probably.
Without a doubt. But underneath that casual, almost disrespectful surface, there's this incredibly fierce, almost familial loyalty.
And this chaotic environment is actually good for Skadinia.
Paradoxically, yes, because they're all schemers, they're hard to fool, they read people well, but more importantly, they're not afraid of her magic. They're curious, intrigued even.
They don't see the Mist Thief as this horrifying, monstrous thing.
No, they see power. They respect power. Her affinity, her darkness. It doesn't make her an outcast there. It makes her potentially one of them. A valuable, dangerous asset, which is a compliment in Clockglass.
That must be a huge shift for her. And this environment lets Jonas's own feelings evolve beyond just must protect the asset.
Definitely.
Okay.
He starts acting out of something more personal. We see Skadinia facing threats or mockery, not just from outsiders, but even from remnants of her own people, like that guard, Cian.
Right. Cian mocks her on the docks. What was that about?
Cian basically laughs at Jonas, showing concern for Skadinia's satisfaction or comfort, implying she's just a political prize, why bother being nice? And Jonas reacts immediately.
Physically.
His eyes go dark, that's his mesmer activating, showing his anger. He physically steps between Cian and Skadi, blocking the guard's view of her.
Shielding her.
And then he verbally dresses Cian down, demands to know, "What did you find amusing about my wife's satisfaction?" Then he twists it, saying Skadi belongs in Clockglass precisely because she goes to a realm of nightmares.
So he's not just defending her honor in a traditional sense. He's claiming her darkness and all as part of his world, where her nightmare nature is actually a fit.
Exactly. He's reframing her perceived flaws as strengths that make her belong there. And this public defense is immediately followed by a really interesting private gesture.
The cake.
The cake. Remember during the vow negotiations, Skadinia had sort of sarcastically, defiantly demanded the specific fancy cake, honey-filled, with a bit of spiced cream to be exact.
Just throwing it out there, probably not expecting anything.
Right. But the very next morning, Jonas has it delivered to her. He apparently had to lean on the cook, Ylva, to make this specific non-standard thing.
That's incredibly attentive. It's not about the contract anymore.
No, it shows he was listening, really listening, even to her sarcastic remarks. He's focusing on her personally, her comfort, her desires, even the ones expressed as a joke. It's this blend of fierce public protection and quiet private care.
Okay, so he's defending her, paying attention, but how does the rest of the court accept her? Just because Jonas says so?
Not entirely. Respect in Clockglass has to be earned, and she earns it the Alver way, through sparring.
They actually encourage her to fight with her terrifying mist power.
Yeah. That's the thing. They're not scared of it. They want to see it. They respect power, remember. So they push her to spar to show what she can do. It's the opposite of the suppression she faced back
And
home.
how does she do?
She holds her own and then some. The sources describe her nearly taking down several tough, experienced Krav members, like Fisk and Isak, and she even manages to dodge the moves of Sander, Jonas's brother, who's known for his speed and senses.
So she proves she's not just royalty, she's dangerous. She has skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That earns her genuine respect from the court, not just grudging acceptance because she's the prince's wife, but actual respect for her power and her nerve. That's worth more than any title in clock glass.
And the final seal of approval comes from the top, from King Case.
This is a really touching moment, actually. Case, with his ability to taste fear, approaches her. And instead of being wary of her power, he senses the pain underneath, the fear she carries.
He sees past the mischief persona.
Completely. He expresses genuine, almost fatherly concern for her well-being, for her happiness with Jonas. This is so different from Elderard's manipulative control. Casey's concern feels real.
And that wins her over.
It seems to be a major turning point for her. She starts to relax, to trust. She even admits later that she likes his feral kingdom. She starts to feel like maybe, just maybe, she could actually belong there.
This shift from political pawn to potential family member is cemented by something Jonas does in secret, right? The library project.
Yeah, this is a big one. It shows Jonas's intentions evolving far beyond the contract. He starts this project, apparently getting Sander and another Alver named Vaughn to help him.
What are they doing?
They're renovating this old, dusty room in the keep, turning it into a library specifically for Skadinia.
Why a library?
The text mentions he got the idea from another king, King Ari, who suggested focusing on adding joy to her days. It wasn't about strategy or defense, it was purely about her personal comfort and happiness.
Showing care through action, not words.
Exactly. He fills it with books, cushions, a fireplace, and significantly, he has it decorated in blue and silver, the colors of Nathaven, her lost home.
That's really thoughtful. It's like he's trying to give her back a piece of what she lost, but within the safety of clock glass.
Precisely. It's a quiet, powerful statement. He's building a space for her, proving he wants her there as a person, not just as a bound affinity. He's fighting for her heart now, even if he hasn't fully admitted it yet. #4. Conflicts and emotional bonds.
So the ice is thawing, trust is building. But things don't stay peaceful for long.
Yeah.
The relationship really deepens through shared danger and some pretty intense emotional vulnerability.
Yeah, the external threats force them together, and the internal struggles force them to be honest. First up is the poison plot.
This is an attack from outside.
Yes, a low-sulfar rogue, someone loyal to Prince Arian, manages to infiltrate clock glass during a feast.
Right.
Their mission, assassinate Jonas.
Oh.
They plant these deadly herbs, called sweet venom, into his food setting. It's designed to kill him quickly, destabilize the Alver, and maybe free Skadinia from the vow.
But Skadini gets warned.
She does. She receives this anonymous, cryptic note. It says something like, he'll never truly accept what you are, trying to plant doubt, make her think Jonas is still just using her, maybe even let the assassination happen.
Playing on her deepest fears about being monstrous and unlovable.
Exactly. Classic psychological warfare, but it backfires.
Oh, what does she do?
Instead of freezing or doubting, she acts instantly. She uses her mists, the very power the note implied Jonas wouldn't accept, not for destruction, but for protection.
She stops the poisoning.
She does. She uses her mists to just steal the entire poisoned place setting. Dishes, cutlery, food, everything, just yanks it away from Jonas before he can touch it, sending it clattering to the floor.
A very public, very dramatic intervention.
Hugely symbolic. She uses her monstrous power to save him and, by extension, the entire Alver household gathered there. In that moment, she proves her loyalty beyond any doubt raised by the note or the contract. She's a protector now, not a threat. Her belonging is cemented.
Wow. Okay, so she saves him. And then, not long after, Jonas faces his own internal crisis. His primary vulnerability gets exposed, the mesmer fever.
Right. We need to unpack this because it's so tied to his character. This isn't just getting sick. The mesmer fever is a specific Alver affliction tied to his mesmer.
It's triggered
by suppressing his deepest fears, specifically the fear of losing people he cares about. When he tries to bury that fear, pretend indifference, especially when the feelings are strong, his magic basically turns inward, attacks him. causes these debilitating fevers, nightmares.
So his tough nightmare prince exterior is undermined by his own capacity for love and fear of loss.
Precisely. It's this fascinating inverse relationship. His strength requires a certain detachment, but genuine connection triggers this physical vulnerability.
And this happens after a moment of intimacy with Skadinia.
Yes. They share a bath, they sleep in the same bed, the emotional connection is clearly deepening, and bam! Jonas goes down hard with a severe fever, trapped in a terrifying nightmare. The emotional walls he tried to keep up have crumbled.
And the nightmare itself is significant.
Crucial. His brother, Sander, who has that sensory mesmer, figures it out. The nightmare wasn't just random terror, it was specifically about Skadi, about her being harmed or taken from him.
So the fever proves, physically, that his deepest fear is now losing her.
Undeniably, his body is literally screaming the truth his mind was trying to deny. He's not indifferent. He's terrified of losing her because he cares deeply.
And this incredibly private, vulnerable moment gets shared.
Yes, and this is where Alvar methods get really unconventional again. Queen Malin, the memory thief, steps in, but not just to comfort her son.
What'd she do?
She extracts the memory of the fever, the raw experience of Jonas's fear and protective love for Skadi, and she shares it with Skadinia.
Yes, tells her.
No, she uses her mesmer, puts the memory into a vial, gives it to Skadi to experience directly. No words, no interpretation needed, just the raw, undeniable truth of Jonas's feelings.
That's intense. Talk about radical honesty.
It's pure clock glass strategy, really. Bypass doubt, deliver the emotional payload directly. Skadi now has absolute proof that Jonas's fear, his love, is real, which forces her to confront her own emotional barriers.
Barriers built on years of trauma and lies.
Exactly. She's lived with this belief that she's inherently a weapon, a monstrous darkness. Why? Because Eldorard fed her this horrific lie that she accidentally killed her own parents with her missed affinity when she was a child.
That's unbelievably cruel. No wonder she thinks she's incapable of being loved.
It shaped her entire life, made her terrified of her own power, convinced her she was fundamentally broken. She carries these massive scars, physical and emotional.
And Jonas, seeing this, knowing about the fever and Malin's intervention, how does he respond to her pain?
He meets it head-on, with startling clarity. He uses his own mesmer, his eyes go black, that nightmare prince look, but his words are the complete opposite of threatening.
What does he say?
He tells her flat out, "It is not the power that makes a monster, it is the heart. There is nothing wrong with your heart, Fire."
Yep.
He calls her Fire, acknowledging her spirit, and completely validates her, power and all.
He accepts the darkness she fears in herself.
Fully. He doesn't try to diminish her power or excuse it. He accepts it as part of her and tells her the core of her heart is good. That's revolutionary for her.
But she still pushes back, tries to maintain distance.
Yeah, old habits die hard. She's terrified of vulnerability. She confronts him, says they should just be indifferent strangers, basically repeating her fear that anyone who gets close will eventually be repulsed by the brutality within her once the initial attraction fades.
She's testing him, daring him to agree that she's too much.
Pretty much. And his response is maybe the most honest, most defining statement of their whole relationship.
What does he say?
He looks her right in the eye and says, "You terrify me, but I doubt it is in the way you think."
Wow. So he admits the fear, but reframes it. It's not fear of her monstrosity.
It's fear for her, fear of losing her, fear of failing her, the very thing that triggers his mesmer fever. He's essentially admitting his love and vulnerability through acknowledging that specific, profound terror she evokes in him. Their bond isn't despite their darkness and fear, it's forged because of it. Hashtag tag 5. Betrayal, rescue, and unification.
Okay, so they've reached this point of raw honesty, deep connection. But the political machinations aren't over yet. There's one last major betrayal attempt.
Right. Eldorard hasn't given up. Skadinia makes a return visit to Nat Haven, presumably to deal with affairs there now that she's sort of settling in clock glass.
And Eldorard uses this opportunity.
He does. He orchestrates a situation where King Gerard, another elven king allied with Arion, and Prince Arion himself are present. His final gamble is to push Skadi towards Arion before that first turn window closes, hoping she'll choose Arion and nullify the vow with Jonas.
Still trying to manipulate her choice. Does Arion try to persuade her too?
Yeah. Arion sends her this letter. It's apparently quite cleverly written, trying to play on their shared past, maybe a childhood friendship or connection. He apologizes for past actions, trying to seem like the understanding, forgiving choice compared to the Nightmare Prince.
And Skadinia wavers.
For a moment, yes. She's hit with this wave of doubt and fear. What if Jonas's affection was just an act? A performance to secure her loyalty until the deadline passed. The timing, Arian's appeal, Eldorard's pressure, it rattles her.
But this doubt doesn't last long because things turn violent.
Very quickly, Arian and Gerard aren't just relying on persuasion. They launch a physical attack. Their goal, abduct Skadinia.
A kidnapping attempt.
Yeah.
And they target her specifically.
Yes, and they come prepared. Her most loyal guard, Dorson, the one who came with her from Nathaven, tries to protect her. He's murdered.
How is the method significant?
Very. He's killed with an elven blade made of white iron. This is crucial because white iron is known to specifically weaken or neutralize elven magical affinities.
So they're using anti-magic tactics. And they use it on Skadinia too.
Yes. She's wounded by a white iron blade, and then they chain her in white iron manacles. This completely suppresses her mist power. She's rendered helpless, powerless.
Stripped of her defining strength. Back in Jonas's court, how does he find out?
He receives this farewell note Skadi must have sent when she started doubting, maybe saying goodbye or explaining her confusion. Then, almost immediately, they find Dorson's body, likely near where Skadi was taken. The white iron weapon tells Jonas instantly what's happened. She didn't leave. She was taken.
And his reaction.
Pure protective fury. The fear hits him. Mesmer fever starts flaring up, but he fights through it, channeling the fear and rage into action. There's no hesitation. It's an immediate, brutal counterattack.
This isn't just Jonas anymore, is it? The whole kingdom mobilizes.
The entire clock glass apparatus swings into action. King Case, Queen Melon, Sander, all the Kriv. It's not just a rescue mission, it's war. And they call in their allies too. Eric Bloodsinger sends his Seafay flagship, the Evership. Nightseer and Queen Livia are involved. It's a massive show of force.
All for Skadinia.
All for her. Jonas leads the charge, infiltrating the palace where she's being held. And there's this fantastic moment.
How does he free her from the white iron?
He uses a lockpick, not magic, not brute force, a simple whalebone lockpick, a tool of a thief, a clear nod to his parents' origins, the skills of the feral kingdom.
Using the old ways to break the magic chains. Symbolic.
Very. And as he frees her, with the battle raging around them, he gives her this command, the one thing she needed permission to be all her life.
What does he say?
Be monstrous, wife.
Wow. He's not just freeing her physically, he's freeing her psychologically, telling her to unleash the power she was taught to fear.
Exactly. It's the ultimate acceptance. And in that moment, the full truth about her past finally comes out. Eldorard's great lie is exposed. He admits he lied about her killing her parents, that he crushed her spirit deliberately to make her a controllable pawn for his ambitions.
And Eldorard's fate.
In the chaos, filled with remorse, or maybe just desperation, he does one last thing. He declares Skadi the rightful heir, crowns her Queen of Nothaven, right before he's killed in the fighting.
So she reclaims her power and her birthright almost simultaneously.
And she uses it, fully embraces the Mist Thief. She absorbs the soul of King Gerard, one of her kidnappers, taking his power or life force. Arian sees this, realizes he's lost completely, and flees.
The battle is won. Skadinia is free, her power unleashed and accepted. The alliance
is no longer just political. It's forged in blood, fire, and this fierce mutual devotion. Skadi explicitly confirms her choice later. She tells Princess Mira, I love him, and she tells Jonas directly, acknowledging his nature, you are the one I would have beside me on the battlefield, Nightmare.
She embraces his darkness as he embraced hers, Nightmare Prince and Mist Thief, side by side.
And the final act makes this union permanent, physically.
The moving of Nathaven.
Yeah. Queen Livia's father, the king of the Night Folk Fae, uses his own immense mesmer. He literally uproots the entire Isle of Nathaven, Skadinia's homeland, sails it across the sea, and anchors it permanently to the Alvar lands, to clock glass.
Merging their realms. Wow. That's a statement.
A huge one. The two lands, the two peoples, are now physically joined. Her past home is now part of her new home.
So Skadinia is crowned Queen of the Dokkalfar, but she's choosing to rule from Clockglass.
Yes. She intends to bring her people over. She has this final realization, this quote that perfectly sums up her journey. A house does not make a home. I feel more at home in your cold, misty, devious Alvar lands than I ever did in this palace.
She found her true home, not in the gilded cage, but in the feral kingdom that accepted all of her. Hashtag outro.
So when you look back at the whole thing, what really strikes you is how that initial contract, that piece of paper signed in blood, it almost became irrelevant by the end.
Absolutely. It started as cold politics. But the real alliance wasn't built on clauses and dowries. It was forged in, shared trauma, this radical acceptance of each other's monstrous sides, and just fierce mutual protection.
That political necessity, the need for peace or containment, it morphed into this incredibly powerful, unconditional love. And it was defined by his protective rage, that mesmer fever becoming almost a proof of love, and her willingness to finally embrace her own fire, her own power, because he encouraged it.
Yeah, the vows they took, those initial indifferent vows, they failed. Or rather, they were superseded, because both Jonas and Skadi reached a point where they were willing to risk absolutely everything: fever, capture, death for each other.
It really shows that the strongest bonds, in this world at least, seem to come when someone sees your deepest flaws, your darkest parts, and doesn't just tolerate them, but tells you, yeah, use that, be monstrous.
That acceptance is the foundation. It wasn't about changing each other. It was about accepting the whole person, shadows and all. They didn't find peace despite their natures. They found it because they embraced them together.
It suggests that maybe the greatest strategic asset isn't land or magic power levels, but that kind of fierce, unwavering loyalty. They went from calculated allies to this absolutely inseparable unit.
Okay, so let's leave our listeners with something to chew on. A final provocative thought, building on all this.
Go for it.
Jonas's mesmer fever, that paralyzing fear of loss, was always framed as his biggest weakness, right? The thing that could take him down.
Mm-hmm. His Achilles heel.
So the question is, now that he has Skadinia, now that he has this unconditional love, this family, this unified kingdom built on that bond, does that fear change? Does the fear of loss transform from his greatest vulnerability into maybe his most potent strength? Does it ground him, fuel his protectiveness, drive him to defend what he's built?
Or does it remain his biggest weakness? Is having so much to lose now make him even more vulnerable to that fear, a potential crack in the armor of their new, powerful, but still pretty feral kingdom?
Strength or vulnerability? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. The stakes are higher than ever, but you certainly wouldn't bet against them now.
No, you wouldn't. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
We'll catch you next time.